What's up guys, it's Endymion, and besides covering games like Elden Ring, I actually started on YouTube with my Mass Effect videos, so Starfield was always something on my radar. And like so many, I was watching the Xbox showcase and saw the trailer for Starfield, and while some parts were definitely great, there was also a lot that worried me as well. So in today's video, I want to express my own personal concerns for not only Starfield, but how this game truly is a make or break moment for not only Xbox and Bethesda, but the entire Western gaming frontier as we know it. There's going to be a lot of uncomfortable things I'll say in this video that'll likely piss off a lot of people who are excited about Starfield. But if you'll just watch till the end to hear me out, maybe you'll understand where I'm coming from, and then you can crucify me. So, let's begin. In Starfield, you can do stuff like fly your spaceship, travel through space, and own your own home on a single-person income, which is probably the most insane part of this game when compared to our real-world situation. I mean, flying a spaceship through stars is cool, but owning your home in this economy? Anyway, before Bethesda even revealed any actual gameplay of Starfield, I predicted it would play like a mix of Fallout and No Man's Sky. And when it ended up being exactly that, the game started to confirm some of my worst fears, and then the concerns just kept growing as I kept watching. See, my problem with Starfield is that it just looks like any other Bethesda-made game, but in space, and my other major concern is that this is a game that is ultimately made by Bethesda, a studio not known for taking too many creative risks and always shipping their games full to the brim with bugs and issues, which usually leads to a less than stellar release that is inevitably fixed over years until their experiences play how they should have at launch. Of course, what we saw of Starfield is a vertical slice, which is an extremely polished and carefully edited showcase of the core features of the game, but then again, Bethesda also did this with their reveal of Fallout 76 when they promised a game that just works when it was anything but a game that just worked. This almost always seems to be a Western developer situation, with games shipping that feature almost always game-breaking bugs and janky performances. Which, even though this showcase was curated by Bethesda themselves, Starfield still suffered from FPS drops and weird things like this guy just standing still and not reacting whatsoever to being literally shot in the back with a gun. Which is again a part of the usual jankiness that comes with a Bethesda-made game, unfortunately. But it's not just what Starfield represents for Bethesda as a developer, it's actually what Starfield's success and future means for Western-made games in general, and to a further degree, the existence of a platform like Xbox Game Pass. Rival company Sony CEO Jim Ryan even said that releasing big-budget AAA releases like God of War Ragnarok or Spider-Man 2 on their subscription service day one are economically, as Ryan puts it, unfeasible. Jim Ryan went on to say, quote, "For us, having a catalog of games is not something that defines a platform," the executive said. "Our pitch, as you've heard, is new games, great games. We have had this conversation before. We are not going to go down the road of putting new release titles into a subscription model. These games cost many millions of dollars, well over $100 million to develop. We just don't see that as sustainable." What Jim Ryan says here is not only true, but Sony's own games have proven that their IP do well both critically and financially while still upholding their premium price points. Games like The Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima are easy examples of this, as well as many more. Which is why Starfield being on Game Pass day one doesn't seem to be a very economically sound idea. Not to mention, it doesn't seem to be doing anything particularly new either. Especially since No Man's Sky exists and is at this point in its life cycle a very robust game full of content and has had many years of development time and reiterations. Starfield would need to knock the ball out of this solar system to really even compare. And Starfield just looks like, to me anyway, like a very safe game for Bethesda to make. And it's so hyped by the Xbox community because, well, let's be honest, they haven't had many bangers in the past 5 or more years besides the always quality-made Forza games. Microsoft's output of high-quality genre-defying titles is inconsistent as hell at this point. Even their flagship series, Halo Infinite, is down to weaker than expected player base numbers only a few months after release. And honestly, when I look at Starfield, I just see Fallout in space, and this brings me to my biggest worries with not just Starfield, but what the fallout of this entire situation could end up being. There's a part in the trailer when Todd Howard says that you can visit upwards of 1,000 planets within Starfield. And while some were probably losing their mind due to hype, I immediately rolled my eyes cause I knew it wouldn't be true. We've all been here before with Bethesda where they promise us the moon and all the stars and end up delivering a buggy mess instead. 1,000 planets is borderline impossible. Even No Man's Sky's infinite planet shtick is just procedurally generated levels where the game remixes its assets to create new worlds, but they're just the same thing you've seen before because the amount of manpower and dev time it would take to make thousands of handcrafted worlds would be, well, impossible. Starfield would have been far more interesting to me if Bethesda promised 10 or so planets you could fully explore, but each was wholly unique and full of mysteries instead. When I hear 1,000, I just imagine 50 of those planets will just be a barren world with an outpost or two, and another 100 will be planets full of water or just lava, with only a few actual planets having full-blown dev-created content with actual cities or, true meaningful content. But really, what can we expect of Western games these days in all honesty? Games are so expensive to make, especially these AAA ones, that when I see Starfield's combat, it was like, oh, it's just Fallout again. I mean, you even get the perks with the cute icons, which is again very Fallout-y, and the generic flavor text names on the enemies that just say pirates in big letters, like, it all just feels so, bland? I mean, I will give some credit, however, that at least Bethesda is going for a more 2001 A Space Odyssey vibe to their game than, say, Star Wars or Spaceballs, which is cool, don't get me wrong, but every moment where I saw something cool in the showcase, like a big alien or flying through space, I would then see weird facial animations, basic FPS combat, and the usual janky animations. It felt like I could see the Wizard of Oz behind his curtain pulling the levers and blinking his flashy lights in between all the moments of grandeur. Not to mention that when you compare Microsoft's single massive new IP's graphics and looks, well, I mean, even 2020's Ghost of Tsushima looks better, and that was on PS4. And when you start comparing Starfield to its competitors in terms of graphics or creativity, I mean, look, I don't want to sound like a hater, but Starfield just seems like a by-the-numbers made-by-committee style of Western game. A game that just takes all the tried and true gameplay mechanics and systems of previous titles and blends them into a smoothie that will taste ultimately very familiar and probably be full of bugs as well. Whereas other companies reinvent their franchises in new and exciting ways, offering new gameplay styles, worlds to explore, and actual next-generation looking experiences, it just feels like Microsoft and Bethesda are playing catch-up in a race where their competition isn't even in the race anymore because they've already crossed the finish line. The level of detail and polish that Microsoft and Bethesda would have to achieve in order to meet the lofty expectations of their audiences is, frankly, going to be borderline impossible in my eyes for them to reach. Mainline Bethesda Softworks has basically never released a product on launch that wasn't a buggy mess filled with janky controls or game-breaking issues. Starfield can really only go two ways in my opinion. It either ascends past all skepticism and becomes a triumph that stands tall amidst everyone else, or there's going to be a lot of post-mortem videos made after its release about what went wrong and how Bethesda and Microsoft have, once again, not met the expectations of their fans and their haters, which is what happened with Halo Infinite, which isn't even a year old at this point. I sincerely hope Starfield is amazing, I really do, and I can see glimpses of wonder in there, but I've also been burned many times before, and I know better now than to think that this time will be any different. I just hope Starfield isn't like most other huge Western main games in that they all ship on fire and in shambles only for the games to be made somewhat decent a year or two after release. But again, this is Bethesda we're talking about. The Western champions when it comes to smoke and mirrors with what they present versus what customers actually get. So whether it's the generic pirate enemies or the obscene claim of over 1,000 explorable planets, I would just like to say that we all should keep our expectations in check. And for Bethesda especially, if anyone there is watching this, to delay the hell out of this game if it means this isn't a repeat of Fallout 76 or Fallout 4 or, well, everything they've ever released at launch, to be honest. Starfield is not just a make or break moment for Bethesda or Microsoft, but for Game Pass and the integrity and industry surrounding all Western AAA games. This better be amazing, Bethesda, or believe me, you won't ever hear the end of it. Well, that was fun to make. So, what do you think of Starfield? Let me know in the comments. I'm far more excited for the next Mass Effect than I am for this. But if you've watched my channel before, you know I am insanely skeptical and tired of so many Western media's nonsense things these days. So let's just hope for the best, I guess. Thanks to my patrons for all their support as always. Subscribe to give my life meaning, and thanks for watching. I'm Endymion. I'll see you in the next one.